Hey everyone, Leo with the Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our vintage bud vase and flower. We've got a new 3D flower for you. We'll get to that at the end of the video, but I have all of my pieces cut out, as should you, and we're going to kind of work from the bottom up. So just because of the shape of this vase, it's going to require some additional work, but it's not bad at all. So in front of me here, I've got the bottom of the vase lined up, the top of the vase, and what we're going to do is we're going to join these pieces together using these tabs. Okay, so I'm going to grab my first piece here, and it should be thinner at the bottom and thicker at the top. So this is the top, this is the bottom, and we're going to begin by connecting this tab here to our next piece. Okay, so let's begin. I've got the tab here at a 90-degree angle from the surface, and I'll show you why. I'm going to hit that with a little bit of glue and then just dab that with my finger, thin it out. And we'll take the next piece, line it up as accurately as you can. There's going to be a little bit of a curve to it, but at this point, let's just worry about getting this tab in place. This is going to help anchor everything. Okay, so now that we have that, we can flip this around, and we're going to put glue on these 3 tabs. And I'm just going to do a few dots and then use my finger to spread the glue out. Whoops, my glue bottle is getting a little excited there. Okay, we'll thin that out with our fingers here. Try to get that glue out to the very edge of that tab. Okay, and then we're going to flip this around. And I'm grabbing the tab with my finger while pushing it up against this surface, and I'm also paying attention to the very edges of each of these shapes to make sure that I'm matching up these edges accurately, because it does kind of curve a little bit. And when you do that, you're kind of creating a curve on this piece as well. There's going to be a little bit of tension there that you can actually feel. If you try to spread these apart, you can feel how there's like a tension there. Okay, so just hold that in place, give that a few seconds to set, and there you go. Okay, so we're going to repeat this process. Well, it looks like this is 6-sided, so 4 more times. We'll start with this tab here, and again, I've got this at a 45-degree angle. I'm sorry, a 90-degree angle to the surface, so that when I hit this with my finger, there's no chance of my finger hitting that surface. Okay, so it makes the process a lot cleaner. Okay, let's get that first tab lined up as accurately as we can and press and hold that in place. Give that a second to set. It's our little anchor there. And let's bring these 3 tabs down, hit them with a little bit of glue. Right now this process is a lot easier because we're only holding 3 pieces, but I think as we progress here, there's going to be more paper to deal with, and you may have to kind of play with it and move things around to get comfortable with your finger placement. Okay, there we go. And there we go. Half of it is pretty much put together now. Okay, moving on to the next section. We'll do the same thing. Just get some glue on there. There we go. And get that lined up as accurately as you can. And just press and hold while it sets. Okay, so you see what I mean here. Now this piece is going to start to kind of encroach into your space. So just do your best to work with it. Spreading that glue out to the very edges. And grab that. Just go up the row of tabs here. So as I'm working my way up the tabs here, I do have to slightly adjust this piece that I'm holding to make sure that it fits that contour of the previous piece. Okay, so again here, this almost wants to close up into a box, but we're not going to let it because we've still got 2 more sections to glue together here. So let's get our glue on this tab once again. Nothing different here. I do believe that it's important that we get this first piece anchored to make the rest of the process a lot easier. Okay, so grab that first one there, get that lined up, and press and hold. And then we can peel it back, get our glue on the 3 remaining tabs. 1, 2, 3. And let's bring that out to the very edge of the tabs. There we go. And again, so I'm actually taking this and kind of squeezing it a little bit to give it a little bit of a bend and a curve. And that's going to allow me to get these edges lined up more accurately. Okay, just keep holding there. There we go. Okay, so now this part's still going to be easy, and the last part will be fine as well. It's just going to be a little bit different. So let's go ahead and anchor this last piece before we close this thing up. Almost there. Okay. Grab this section and line that up. I got my middle finger behind the tab here. There we go. And I'm pressing down with my thumb and my middle finger. I've got this piece and the tab sandwiched between these 2 fingers here. Okay, there we go. Peel that back and get our glue on the 3. Spread that out to the edge, just like that. And again, taking this, kind of squeezing it between my 2 fingers. Let me get this glue off my finger here to give it that shape. Because you'll notice that this piece here, it does have, I guess you would consider it defined edges. It's not completely smooth. Well, actually, maybe it is. It just doesn't completely look like it. It's because there's tabs connected to the other side. Now, I do think it does have some very subtle defined edges, and that's what we're trying to do, is just connect these 2 so that they match up perfectly along the seam there. Okay, so that's all together now. Now we just need to join it. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to anchor it on the bottom here. Just a few dots of glue, and then spread that glue out to the very edge of the tab so it covers pretty much the whole thing. And grab that other half, or the other end, line it up just as we've been doing. And the only difference here is how we're going to access the remaining 3 tabs, and that's going to happen from the inside. But really the process is pretty much identical. Okay, so you can see we've got the 3 tabs there, just like before. I'm going to do a little dot of glue, and there we go, just like that. Okay, and then same as before, find that first tab. I'm giving this a little bit of a squeeze to bend it up so it takes on its appropriate shape, and then just joining it together there. Perfect. Okay, all right, so our base is done. These tabs here, we're actually going to use these to connect the bottom half to the top half. So let's put this off to the side and let it sit for a minute, let it really solidify. Now this here is the top half of our vase, and this part here actually at the top is straight. It's going to be it's not angled at all, so I think we should probably start at the top. This process is going to be pretty much identical to the bottom half with the exception of the shape. The shape is different and the number of tabs are different. Now this one is actually going to be a little bit easier because there's not much curve to it. Okay, so grab your other piece. Make sure that the top is nice and flush there. And nice straight edge right there. There's no curve at all. Press and hold that together for just a moment. Let it set. And we can move that out of the way. And I think with this one, we should have no problem doing all of these tabs. I'm doing little dots so that I can spread this out with my finger before it has a chance to set. This glue is nice and tacky. As I get towards the bottom part here, I'm going to hit it a little bit less with my finger so that it's kind of thicker at the bottom. By the time we get to the bottom, well, it has, has a tendency, the longer it sits there on the paper, has a tendency to dry. So if we have a little extra at the bottom, it's less likely to dry out on us by the time we get there, because we've got all of these tabs that we need to glue together. And so far, it is working out perfectly. Okay, I'll show you the inside of this in just 1 second. You notice no glue shooting out anywhere. Everything is beautiful and clean and pristine, and you can see the tabs there all connected. Okay, so I'll do one at a time this time, but let's get onto the top tab. Throw some glue on there, thin it out, bring it out to the very edge. Grab your next piece, line it up. Just should be just straight up against that edge. The top should be flush with the previous layer, the very tip top. Here we go. I'm kind of doing surgery here. I guess this would be the closest thing I can imagine to doing surgery, having to have pinpoint focus on such a small little area, using your hands and tools. Who knows, maybe we could all be surgeons. I mean, you'd probably want to read some books on anatomy before you go doing anything like that, but you get what I'm saying. From a dexterity standpoint, I think we would all make some pretty good surgeons working with our hands so much. How many people can say that they do that in their workplace or even as a hobby? Okay, so going down the row here, one tab at a time. Now, because I put on the glue very thin and dabbed it to kind of create the little textures that you see from my fingerprints, it's letting more air in there, which is making the glue tacky, and then it even dries faster. And literally just a few little presses, and you've got all those tabs on there beautifully, and they're not going anywhere. Each one of those little tabs is doing a little bit of work in keeping everything in place, and all together they are a powerhouse. Okay, so let's move on to the next section. Now, if you are having a difficult time doing all these tabs at once, you can certainly break it down, break it up into smaller sections, and I'll do that with you here just to show you. Okay, but that first tab, got to get that glued and in place. Make sure that everything is anchored nicely, and continue to hold that in place. And so here's what we'll do, just to show you. If you don't want to do all the tabs at the same time, we'll just do like 3. And I still want to spread that glue out. Get that glue out to the very edge of each of those tabs. So we've got 3 this time. And place that right on there. Get the first one lined up and press. Second one lined up and press. Oh, what was that? Oh, that was my little YouTube kitty cat. When you hear him, that means we just went up another 100 subscribers. So good time to pitch the YouTube channel. Okay, so we just did 3 at a time. And now this is why I wanted to just do them all. But what you can do now is just fold these over and just add some glue to the remaining. You can do the 4. Let's do the 4 tabs. And we'll pull this out of the way a little bit so that we can take and spread that glue out to the very edge, just like that. So again, just breaking it into smaller, more manageable segments. If you find that trying to do them all is overwhelming, there's no rule saying you can't do that. Ultimately, what it comes down to is, kind of looking at what needs to be done. And I guess having some experience to know when you can really go all out and try to do a lot in one shot and when you shouldn't. I think over time that just comes naturally, especially with our projects, because they're engineered very similar each time. But get that glue on that top tab, line this one up just like we did the last 4 times. Get it nice and aligned and nice and flush at the top, and hold that in place for a moment while it sets. Okay, and we can peel this back. I'm going to go back to doing all of these tabs in one shot because I definitely think it's very manageable. Okay, and spread that glue out. There we go. Probably should have put a little more on the bottom. I might have to go in and add some glue down there. There's one. Again, following that curve. What I'm doing actually, what I realize I'm doing now is I'm taking my left hand and I'm pulling the left side, this side, away from this piece to make sure that I've got it lined up correctly. And that's all it's really taking to get that nice curve there. And that worked out okay. I think that bottom one should be okay. There we go. Wonderful. So we've got one more piece to attach, then we can close it up. You know, as far as the construction of the vase, it's not that difficult. We'll be done with that in no time. And the flower's actually not that bad. None of our flowers are difficult to do as long as you follow along. It may seem intimidating, but they're probably some of the most fun things to put together from our site, only because they tend to look very real when all said and done. Okay, so again, lining up that top piece, making sure it's flush with that side as well as the top. Hold that in place for a moment. We can peel that back, and let's grab our glue. Get that in place. Okay, spread that glue out to the edges, and that's another way to keep your project looking very professional. Get that glue out to the edge. It'll look better down the road too. Okay, so again, just lining it up nicely. I'm holding this piece with this piece right here where my thumb's wiggling with just this hand, and I'm using my left hand to kind of guide the rest of the project into place as far as that curve goes. So in another, I guess another way to explain it would be, this is staying pretty stationary and I'm using this hand to really move things around and get them into place. There we go. Okay, so now it's just a matter of joining this all together. Okay, and that process is going to be really no different. Okay, so we've got this pretty much ready to go here, and what I'm deciding to do here is try to get all these done in one shot. So I am going to put glue on all these tabs. Otherwise, what you'll have to do if you try to break this up into little sections, if you want to anchor that first, it's going to be a little difficult to get your glue in there. So I think we can do it. As you work your way down, maybe leave a little extra glue on the tabs at the bottom so that it doesn't dry up as quick. And if we start here, we'll actually probably have some residual glue left over on our fingers to kind of give that bottom section a thicker coat. Yeah, I can feel it. So definitely more wet at the bottom, and that's totally what we want. Okay, so let's tuck that in. Let's line up that first section. That's the most important to get it anchored. And I can feel that it's already gripping. So I'm going to start working my way down. And I think that's going to be pretty much as far as I can go from the top. So now I'm working at the bottom. And now I'm going to use this hand to kind of pull the rest of this towards me so that I can follow that shape. And that worked out perfectly. You know, when the piece is really small and manageable in your hands like this, and the tabs are rather small, you can certainly go in and just do more than one at a time, and that worked out nicely. Okay, we're gonna come back to this piece for just a second. And we're gonna take this little hexagon, we're gonna glue that to the bottom, like so. Okay, and what I'm gonna do, as always, is I'm gonna begin by just anchoring it to one of these tabs. It doesn't need to be perfect as far as the glue goes. It's purely just there as a kind of a, it's like what we call skeleton pieces here in the Dreaming Tree world. I'm gonna push that down right onto the tab, just make sure it's centered. This is gonna help this piece keep its shape and also provide a little access door so that we can glue these two sections together. All right, I'm gonna peel that back, and now I'm gonna put glue on the remaining tabs, like so. Just a few little dots here and there, and we'll pop that back down. And just press that down all the way around. Make sure it's nice and centered. Then take a look, the shape looks good. Okay, so that's gonna keep this thing from jiggling around as we get ready to connect everything together. Okay, so there we go. And we've got an access door big enough to get your finger in there so that you can actually push those tabs into place. Okay, so now we're gonna join these two sections together, and as always, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna anchor one side first. And that's gonna make life a lot easier. So pick a side, any side, doesn't matter. Keep all the other tabs pointing in. I'm gonna grab this tab, and I'm gonna spread that glue out nice and thin to the very edge. There we go. Pop the top on. Make sure that we get it nice and centered. Okay, and with this one actually, what we can do is we can do it this way, where we can actually push from both sides. Make sure that tab is nice and centered in there. Take a look from this side and make sure that it's nice and aligned there as well. And then we can actually put that down on our surface and press down. There we go. Okay, so you can see how that looks. Okay, so at this point now what we're gonna do, we're gonna put glue on all of these tabs, but the first tab that we're going to push up against the inside of this, we're gonna close this up, and from the bottom here, I'm gonna stick my finger in there and push the tab up against the inside of this section. And the first tab that I wanna do that with is this tab here, the tab opposite of the side that's already glued down. And that's gonna help us get this nice and centered, and then we'll just have 4 more tabs. We'll just kind of work our finger around to get glued into place. Now, because we've got some large tabs here, we do want to throw a little extra glue on all of these tabs so that it doesn't dry out on us quickly, too quickly, I should say. Okay, and I am going to spread this glue out to the very edges of these tabs, although that's not completely necessary. And we do want to kind of move quickly here because we don't have a lot of time. Okay, so close that up and grab your finger from the inside and push it up against. Use your thumb here on this side to push back, get that centered, and then just work your way around the remaining tabs there. You might have some glue kind of keeping you from moving it the way you want to move it, and that's okay. Just give it a little nudge, and then just work your way around the remaining 2 sides on the other side. And then once you have it all assembled, keep going around and continue to apply pressure between your 2 fingers here. And there you have it. Okay, so that's why you wanted to have a little extra glue on there so it didn't dry out too quick, and that turned out perfect. Okay, all right, so there's our vase. Now we do have this little piece here to cover up the bottom, so we can get that in place. I'm gonna actually put the glue on this piece and just work some of that glue out to the edge. Just kind of hold it in the middle. Don't really need to put glue in the middle since there's just a giant hole there. Not going to do us any good anyway. Okay, and pop that right on the bottom, cover it up, make it look nice and complete. Make sure you get it nice and centered on there too. And just press that down and hold. No one's really going to be looking at the bottom, but it's nice to have a nice bottom. Oh, I crack myself up sometimes. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so now it's time to put our panels on. And these are all identical since we don't have any cutouts or anything strange going on this structure. With that said, these pieces here are going to be flush with the little score mark at the top as well as the center. So those are going to go on just like that, very simple. I did ink this with a little bit of pink, and then I went over it with a dark green because the pink that I used was a little too hot pink, a little too bright maybe, with this burgundy color that we have here. Kind of wanted to make it a little more subdued. Okay, so we just want to get this nice and centered, flush with the bottom, should pretty much meet right at the little score mark there. Okay, and just run your finger up and down this piece, making sure that it's making good contact all the way up and down. You don't want it peeling away. There we go, just like that. Okay, and we're going to repeat that process 5 more times until we get all these panels on. We'll go to the bottom, and that will actually do it for the vase portion of the assembly. And then we just have to have some fun making a brand new flower designed by none other than our Ron Gutman, our art director. Get that nice and centered on there, flush with the bottom, and just press that up against the surface. Oops. There we go. Beautiful. Crazy what you can make with paper, huh? Making vases and flowers and teapots and teacups. It really is. It's a work of art. I don't even think it's a craft. You can see this kind of stuff in little art displays somewhere maybe. Okay. There we go, getting that glue out to the very edge of the top and bottom. And again, getting it nice and centered on these sections, flush with that little bottom there, right where the score line would begin. Okay, and again, should make contact throughout, top to bottom. Shouldn't have any gaps on the sides. That looks nice. And just moving right on. So how is yours coming along? Hopefully just as good, if not better than mine. Okay. And literally just looking at the very edge of that panel, getting it lined up flush with this edge, making sure that it's centered here so that we have a nice even border throughout, and pressing down, making good contact. So if you look at it from like a side vantage point or a side angle, you shouldn't be able to see underneath this paper. Everything should be nice and flush. And that turned out great. So we got a couple more here. We'll get rocking. And the cool thing too about our 3D flowers is we have plenty of 3D flowers and plenty of planters or vases, whatever you want to call them. And I've seen you guys mix and match them quite a bit, but it's definitely something that you can do. So if you love this flower and really love one of our other vases, why not, put this in a different vase? You can do that. We've seen so many different versions and ideas when it comes to working with our 3D flowers over the years in our Dreaming Tree group on Facebook. So if you're not a member there, head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree group in your search, and you can see all the wonderful stuff that our dreamers are dreaming up daily. it gets crazy in there. Okay, so last piece here. And there we go. Wonderful. Get that lined up with the bottom, centered as well, nice and flush, and voila. Just like we did in the previous two projects, you can see in front of me here, I'll slide this back a little bit, the teacup as well as the teapot. I've got some actual braid that I hot glued on there. If you want to kind of, make yours similar, you can do that. And on this piece, I'll be putting a little bit of braid just around the top here. Okay, so top portion is done. Now we have some panels for the bottom. Pretty much the same process here. And with this one, we are going to just get it centered. Okay, so we should have a nice little even border going all the way around it. If you want, you can take a 3/8 inch dowel and just kind of give it a little bit of a curve, okay, because that will help it kind of sit better on that little structure there. Especially when they're really small pieces like this, they tend to be stronger, like harder to bend. You've got a big piece of paper, it's very floppy for some reason, whatever the physics is behind it. With a small piece of paper like that, it tends to just be a lot stronger, probably because it's not really supporting a lot of weight, I would guess. And those paper fibers just really hold their shape. So I'm kind of ripping at, I guess, kind of breaking up the fibers a little bit. Okay, so let's get started here. And we're going to want to apply glue to the entire surface of these little pieces. But again, especially at the top and bottom, make sure that you get that glue out to the very, very edge. Okay, and remember that we're going to have, this is going to be centered on here with an even border all the way around. It's going to be thin, but you don't want either the top or bottom to be touching this piece here or being flush with the bottom either. You want it just to be nice and centered on this section of the structure. And these little lines here around the pattern look very nice once everything's all together. Okay, so that is in place. Everything is making great contact. I don't think I trained this one as much as I trained the other ones, so these should actually go on a lot easier for me. Make sure not to use too much glue. Otherwise, again, you're going to be sitting here for days waiting for it to set instead of just moving along here and getting into a nice rhythm. Okay, there we go. Press that into place and hold. There we go. Okay, so we're going to repeat this process 4 more times. This is a good point here now to pause me if you want to work at your own pace. Once you're done, you can kind of fast forward. And when you see me grabbing and bringing the flowers over, that's when you know to hit play again so we can begin working on the flowers. But in the meantime, I've got 4 more panels to put on, and then we can start putting the little flower together. It'll be fun. Okay, just moving right along here, again, keeping everything nice and centered so that you have a nice even border all the way around. Make sure everything is making good contact. I'm just using as much of the surface area of my fingers as I can to apply a downward pressure onto this piece. So this whole bundle, I would say, is definitely my mom's cup of tea, pun intended. But she lives out in Ohio, right next door to my sister, so it's kind of like an Everybody Loves Raymond sort of thing, but obviously they're not filming it and making millions of dollars, but no, it's nice. She's got 4 grandkids out there. But if I mean, maybe I'll still mail this to her. I don't know. We'll see. but this is definitely my mom's style. She probably even has a paper teapot, or actually I think she does, maybe even from the previous company, still sitting in her craft room, I'm guessing. But she definitely, when she sees this, I haven't even showed her yet the final result. I usually email her, or not email her, I'll text her a photo of the stuff that we're releasing beforehand, and see what kind of reaction she gives me. She's a pretty good judge at how well a product is going to perform, so I always like to show her what I've been up to. Okay, so down to the last little bit here, and start on the flower. It's gonna be fun. It's been a while since I've even done a 3D flower. I have a little wedding thing that I need to put together for Liesel's sister who's getting married next month. Geez, I'm gonna use that little wedding cake that we released a while back for her, the little envelopes and cards that people drop off before a wedding. And I'm gonna jazz it up with a bunch of different flowers and make it coordinate with, her wedding and the bridesmaid dresses and all that good stuff. And I've got a little area there at the bottom. You can see it's kind of pulling away right there. So I just grab a scrap piece of paper. There's no glue on the bottom, so I can literally rub it and just use the surface of the structure to kind of guide this piece under there, paint some extra glue on it, and then just press that down. I was getting caught up in conversation and not focusing, and that's what happens when you don't totally focus on this. But that looks great, and it looks great. Looks like what you would see in the stores as far as the shape goes. It's hard to believe that you can do that with paper. Okay, so that's done. Now we need to move on to the flower. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is actually grab my floral tape and figure out which color I'm gonna use. I like to kind of match it with the green floral that we're using. In this case, I'm using AC cardstock's leaf color, and I think I might actually go with the darker one. Okay, so I'm gonna go with that. And I have the paper, or actually the stems that I'm using are this paper wrapped wire. I'm not really sure what the gauge is, but that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna start off by wrapping the entire wire. So for those of you that have not used floral tape before, you want to make sure that as you pull it off of the spool that you stretch it out, because that is going to expose the little sticky part of it. And then you just kind of wrap it all the way down. And I probably don't need to use the whole stem, but obviously you can always cut the stem, but you can't add to it. So having more is a good option until it's time to figure out how short to trim it to. So I'm gonna bring this pretty much all the way down. I know for a fact that I don't need to go all the way down, but I'm just gonna go to about here. I think that's probably a safe place. There we go, okay. All right, so we've got a lot of different parts here, but we're gonna start off with this part here. This is like the little stamen center. And what we're gonna do is gonna wrap this around the top like this. Now what I wanna do first is just take a dowel, kind of a thicker one, and just train this a little bit to start getting it ready to curl around on itself, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start on this side here, and you could do one of two things here. You could either glue this down with some hot glue. You could tape it down if you want. I actually am gonna use my hot glue today because it does, it just sets so quick, and I'm actually getting better with it because I'm using less. Kind of applied that from my knowledge of paper crafting with regular glue. So we're just gonna glue that little part where I just put the glue that's already dry somehow. That's the only downside of hot glue, is how quickly it dries. You know what I'm going to do is actually, okay, I'm starting not to like hot glue again. I'm just going to put some glue right at the top of this, like so. I think that's just better. And then we're going to take this and glue that little tab right onto it, nice and tight. Try to wrap it around the stem. Okay, so that's it for you, Mr. Hot Glue, for now. And the rest of this, I'm going to use regular glue because I'm just gluing paper onto paper. So what we're going to do is put a nice thin line of glue right along the very base of this, very thin. Don't need a lot. Okay, and we're going to begin just curling this around itself. You want to kind of keep it on itself the entire time. So it's always paper on paper. You don't want it to go down onto the stem. Okay, just wrap it around itself. And having that hot glue on there makes it so you can actually wrap it tighter because it's already got a nice strong hold on it. And it's not going to let go while you're kind of curling this onto itself. Now this end piece here, that glue is already dry, so I'm going to hit that with a little extra glue right at the very edge so that I can take it and glue it onto itself, and then I'll just press and hold. I'll fold it up this way so you can see the top of it. And that's what it's going to look like, and we're actually going to take and just kind of separate all these little petals to give them a little more volume. Okay, so we can actually start doing that now. Just take that and separate them out. Just spray them out and just give them a little more volume, like that. That's fine, just like that, okay? All right, so we are now ready for these guys here. So what you'll notice here is that there are 3 sets of 3. We've got one color, these are the larger ones, another color, middle size, another color, smaller size, and actually, I'm sorry, there's only 2 of the smaller, 3 of the middle size, and 3 of the large size. What we're going to do is we're going to start with the smaller ones. Okay, these are the smaller, the smallest of the 3 sets. And what we're going to do, okay, so let's take our first of the smallest flowers, one of 2. And you'll notice that I have texture on one side and it's smooth on the other. I actually inked the texture side. Now, just based on how we're going to curve and train these petals, what I want to do is actually train them up this way. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to begin by placing the dowel between my finger and one of these petals, and we're going to pull this petal back up about 90 degrees and then just give it a little push. Okay, so it's kind of standing up like that. I'll run the dowel all the way through, and then I'll take the tip between my finger and the dowel and kind of curl it towards me, just like you're curling your hair. We really want the curl to be kind of dramatic and intense. Okay, so we'll do that again. Okay, I'll run the dowel through, and I'll take and curl that in. Now that is kind of creased there at the bottom, so it's not staying where I really want it to stay, but that's okay. Okay, fold that up, grab the bottom, just kind of make it stand up, run the dowel through the rest of it, and then curl the tip. Same thing here, just grabbing it between my finger and the dowel, 90 degrees, give it a little push, and run the dowel through all the way, curl the top. Okay, just like that. There we go. I may need to kind of squeeze these in a little bit more, but that's fine. Okay, so we have that in place. And now what we can start doing is, well, feeding these through one at a time here. What I might do, oops, what I might do is actually take and finish wrapping this all the way to the bottom. This is kind of long, but it's okay. And the reason I want to do this is so I can make kind of a little point at the bottom to make it easier for the paper to go on. Okay, so let's grab our first little flower, our first little set of petals. And what I'm going to do is just, there's a little cross in the center there, and you just want to take and feed this through like so. Now we do want to put some glue on the underside of the stamen here, so that when we bring this flower up, it has something to hold on to. So I'm going to cake this pretty good with some glue so that it has something to grab onto. And with the follow-up layers here, probably won't need to do it as much, but it helps to spin the stem as you're bringing it down so that it doesn't get caught as easily. Okay, and then just press that down, or press the petal, the flower petals, up as far as you can go until it makes contact with that glue that we just added there. Okay. There we go. Yeah, and that's good. We want them to be very close to that little stamen piece in the center. Okay, so that's that. We're going to do the same thing. We've got one more of the small petals here, and I accidentally started training this, and I trained it the wrong way because I wanted that texture to be up. So I have to kind of fix it. And surprisingly, it's handling it very well. Usually when you train paper one way, it doesn't want to stay put as well going the opposite direction, because I'm really loosening up those fibers in there and they're just kind of flailing around all over the place. But I'm going to kind of push that together in the center like that. There we go. If it helps you, just to make it easier, you can kind of take an X-Acto or something and kind of pre-drill the hole there a little bit. Okay, so let's take this now and let's add some glue to the very bottom. I'm going to just do some dots. That's all you really need. And then take the end of the stem, poke it through, and ride it up. Just kind of holding this in place with my hand while I spin and push down on the stem. And it's getting easier and easier because that hole is getting wider and wider as we go. Just make sure that the petals make it around the previous layer. And you want to offset these petals so they're not right on top of each other. We want to create as much depth and dimension as we can. Bring that all the way up, just like that. Go up as far as you can go so that it's making contact with that glue that we just put on there. Okay, and this is why that first step, having the hot glue holding everything in place, will make this process that much easier. Okay, so that's the first layer of flowers. These are the smallest ones. Now we're going to move on to the second largest in size. And the process is going to be exactly the same. Okay, so if at this point you get the process, again, we're going to take and pinch the petal between my finger and the dowel, bring it up 90 degrees, just give it a little bit of a tug so that it sits like that. And then we can just take and curl the upper half of it, take the tip, and curl it in like so. Okay, just like that. It's okay to be kind of random with this too. It doesn't need to be precise and exactly the same on each petal. But we do want to, again, the whole idea is to get these to curl in. It's almost as if they're protecting the stamen, which is, well, the source of its food for the bees and its reproductive features. So of course it's going to cradle that and try to protect it. Okay, so I'm just kind of bringing it in, almost like creating a little bud, releasing it. Okay, so again, this is the second largest set of petals, and just like we did before, I'm going to take and just throw a little bit of glue on the very center of the bottom of the previous flower, or layer of petals, I should say. And then same thing, just poke it right through that little hole and feed it up. Just give it a little twist. All the way up. And again, make sure that you're offsetting those petals. Try to create some space there in between the layers. There we go. And press that into place. If you want, next time, or each time, whatever you prefer, you can certainly use hot glue and maybe just throw a little bit of a thicker amount on there. Okay, but so far so good. Looking really good. Everything is nice and compact there. And we'll move on to the next set here, or the next group of petals. Okay, and curl that in, bring it up, give it a little push, train, and curl. Oh, doing it wrong again. Jeez, Leo. I want that texture side up. Again, because most of this is hidden, because it's got so much curl to it, you know, what would be the point of doing all that inking if all you're doing is hiding it on itself? Okay. There we go. Sorry, I'm being quiet here because I'm kind of getting in the zone. Let's squeeze that together. And you know what, this time I'm afraid to use the hot glue because I feel like it's gonna set before it gets there. But I guess, you know what, here's what I'll do. I'll start bringing this up, and just before I get to the top, I'll throw that hot glue on there. Okay, so we're almost there. I'll flip this upside down and just do a little bit of hot glue right around the base of the previous layer, as well as the stem. And you know what, this will actually kind of make it a little more sturdy going forward too. And just pull that up. Again, offset the petals so they're not right on top of each other. And voila. Okay, so that's looking really sharp so far. Okay. And put that off to the side while we get the next one ready. So again, this process, if you want, I'm kind of jumping around here, but if you really wanted to create like an assembly line, what you would do is just get all of this part done now, and then just start putting, you know, each section onto the actual stem. I'm kind of going back and forth here, but I'll show you what I mean. So I'll do this one, get that curled in, lift it up. That one's already done. Okay, so that one's ready to go. The only thing that you need to pay attention to is just to make sure that you keep them all in the correct order if you're going to do an assembly line sort of thing like I'm doing right now. Okay. So bending this forward, giving it a little push, running it through, and then curling the tip. Don't forget to curl that tip. Can always uncurl it if we feel that once everything is together, if it looks like it's too much, you can always uncurl it by just really just grabbing it and moving it however you want. But I think this is the best method right now to recreate the look of this flower. Okay, so that one's there. So again, I could do those other two just to get them ready to go. And hopefully after seeing me do this about 7 or 8 times, it all makes sense. And the cool thing is too, is you don't need to worry about doing it wrong. It's still gonna look great because you've got all these layers of inked flowers Even if you don't ink it, it's still going to look good. But worst case scenario, if you are worried about it, you can always just cut out a few extra petals. It only takes a few seconds, maybe a minute, and just play with it and just kind of get a feel for it. That's what, you know, that's one great thing about this, is it doesn't cost much to just try it and, you know, see what you come up with. And I think you'll surprise yourself every time. I'm just going to give these a little bit of a squeeze and just kind of crunch them together just so they stand up more like that. You can see the difference there, okay? So if you just take these and just kind of fold the paper in on itself, almost like you're, you know, reversing time and turning it into a bud, it's going to sit a lot nicer. So let's finish up this last one so we can put the first set of petals in. And then we've got a different type of little petal that goes around the last section. And we've got some leaves and things to add to it as well. That'll be fun. Okay. And you can tell I'm getting into a trance here, because I'm not talking as much. That's good. It's good for my brain. Maybe after this we'll have a nice little drink or something. Okay, so again, this is the last of the mid-sized ones here. So I do need to feed that through. And just like I did before, I'm going to feed it through almost all the way in. I'm going to throw that hot glue on there right now. Oops. Okay. And we'll pull that up. Again, making sure that we offset the petals so that they're not on top of each other. This is the previous layer here. This is the next layer. It's offset ever so slightly. Okay. And there we go. So this is what I meant by assembly line. Now, these are the final three of this size. They're all the same size, so it doesn't matter which one we pick right now. I'm just kind of cupping it in my hand, and I'm just going to spin that stem around to get it through the little hole, and then work my way up. Just before we get to the top there, grab my glue gun, just throw a little bit of hot glue right around that stem, and that will eventually push onto the surface of the flower. Again, I am offsetting the petals, just like that. Push it up as far as you can go. Don't want to rip it off. But look how nice and detailed it's starting to look. Okay, and moving on to the next one. So this is where the whole assembly line thing makes sense and kind of comes into play. It does make faster work since you can focus on, you know, doing repetitive tasks. That's why assembly lines are so beneficial and efficient. Okay, let's bring that up. Offsetting the petals there. There we go. That's good. Okay, and the last one here of this shape, and then we've got two more little petals to go. Just kind of spin that through the little hole, spin it all the way up. It would help to trim the stem, so you don't have to bring it up as high. That's okay. And get our hot glue on there. There we go. And as we're bringing that up, kind of get that petal offset. Should just snap out. Maybe not this time. There we go. Cool. Look at that. Looks nice. Almost looks like a little artichoke. Okay. All right, so that's that. Now we've got a little bit of a different flower, or a different set of petals here. I've already kind of pre-trained that one. I'll show you how I did that. Okay, so let me see here. Yeah, I'm gonna put that one on first. But before I do that, what we're gonna do is actually take this and bend it up like that. We want that to be bent up. Okay, and then you're gonna take and train this. So I'm putting the dowel between the petal and my finger and just running it through. I'm actually almost bending it completely back and then running the dowel through it. If you have to do it twice, that's okay. Just like that. Just like that. Okay, and then what we're also gonna do is take a thinner dowel. This might actually be too thick. And take the very tips of the petal and you're literally just gonna curl it around the dowel. You can do that with one finger like this if you want. It sometimes helps to kind of grab as much of that surface as you can so that you end up with something like that. Okay, so that's pretty cool. There we go. You can take an even thinner dowel. I'll show you that in a second. Maybe we'll do it to a few of the petals. We'll curl them a little more. Okay, yeah, so let me grab an even thinner dowel. Where'd you go, mister? Thought I saw you somewhere. Well, anyway, I just get a little box of dowels at the store, so you kind of go through them. But here you can see, if you take a thinner dowel, you can curl it even more, so it's even more pronounced. So that's the one I just did, and that's the previous one. Okay, and that one curls in a little bit more, and just kind of tuck those in. Okay, so let's grab one of these petals, and just like we did with the previous layers, just poke it through, spin it up, and just before we get to the top, just throw a little bit of hot glue right at the base. Okay, and bring that up. Doesn't matter where it goes at this point, because it's a whole new section of petals, so it's fine. Okay, so then we'll grab the last piece here, poke it through, bring it up, and again, we want to offset this so it's not on top. We want to spin it just a little bit, so it's literally like this. And let me bring this back down so that I can apply my glue. Okay, and just get that into place. Okay, so the next layer that we're going to put on is the calyx, and calyx is going to go like this. So we want to take and this is the texture side. So I'm going to take and put each of these little leaves between my finger, bring it down, or bring it towards me about 90 degrees, and just run the dowel all the way through to give it this little drooping sort of look. There's some little tiny ones in there too. You can take those and just kind of curl those by putting them on your dowel, pinching with your finger, and then just curling it towards you. Almost like you're curling your hair. Okay, just like that. All right, so just like we did with the previous layers, I'm just gonna stab that right through, bring it up all the way. Just before we get to the top, just throw a little bit of glue right at the base, like that. And bring it all the way up, just like that. Okay, so you can see how nice that looks. And at this point, just a matter of attaching a couple leaves. Now before we do that though, we do have on all three of these leaves, I've kind of added a little something extra here. We've got these pieces, and there's 3 different sizes, and they go according to the size of leaf. So you can see that's the largest one, middle, small. We've got large, middle, small. So we just need to group those like that. These are actually just going to get glued to the back of the stem on each of the leaves. And that's going to give it, it's going to make it a little bit stronger so that when we go to actually glue this, or actually, I'm sorry, when we go to take our florist tape and attach this, it will be a lot stronger. Okay, I had a little bit of glue seep out of there. I'm just hitting it with my fingers, picking it up. And I also did ink this with a little bit of a dark green. So we'll flip that over. I'm gonna go a little bit easier on the glue here. I think it just kind of rushed out because I've been using this glue bottle all day and it's might be starting to dry out a little bit in some parts. And I'm just popping that right on the back. Should be flush with the bottom of the stem on the main part of the leaf. Just press that in place. And the last one, and then we just have a couple little, we got these little bits of leaf, and then we've got a couple more over there to finish this flower off, and then we can call it a day. Very simple. Okay, wonderful. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with the largest leaf, and that leaf is going to go about 1 inch down from where the calyx is. I'm going to take my dowel and I'm going to curl this leaf so that it's kind of drooping down like so. I might even take it and just kind of make it like that. Okay, so measure about 1 inch. It's going to go right about there, and actually want it to, it's going to be flush up against the stem right about there like that. And we can even kind of pull it down a little bit, give it a little more separation between the flower and the stem. Okay, if you want, just to kind of hold it in place, this wouldn't be permanent, but you could throw a little bit of hot glue on there. Typically, I would just, this is just to kind of hold it in place. I would not use this as, you know, a permanent solution to affixing it to the stem. But it's great for holding it in place, and then we can grab our floral tape and just start taping right at that little section there, just below the actual leaf where the stem begins. Don't forget to stretch out your tape to reveal that sticky, and just start working your way down the stem. Okay, so with the next section here, this is the medium-sized leaf. What I'm going to do is actually, this is the texture side here. I'm going to put the dowel between the leaf and my finger, and I'm going to curl it up like that to kind of bend it back. But then what I'm going to do is take and I'm going to bend the tip forward, kind of create like an S shape for this leaf, kind of like that. Okay, and that one is going to go down. I'm going to bring that down about, let's say about 1/2 inch. Okay, so if you want, you can literally put this on your little mat here and just figure out where a little bit of like 1/2 inch is. And we're going to offset the leaf as well. I'm just going to put some hot glue right about there. So we don't want to put it on the same side. We're going to offset it so that it's about 45 degrees away from the previous one. And just using the hot glue to kind of hold it in place initially. All right, so the hot glue has it in place. I'm going to grab my floral tape, pull some of it out. Whoops, wow, that's first. Okay, try that again. I might have stretched that a little bit too much. And then just right below the base of the leaf, begin applying your floral tape and work your way down, overlapping it just slightly. I'd say probably want like a 30% overlap. And there you go. Okay, so you can see how nice that is starting to look. And then we've got another one here. This last guy, this is the largest one. And we're gonna do the same S shape sort of thing with this. I'm gonna curl it back right about there. And then I'll curl it forward right about here. Create a nice little S shape. Very subtle. You can go and make it even more intense by kind of curling it back further. And then we can curl this even more. Could maybe use a thicker dowel for this, but I think it'll be okay. So there you go. And sometimes training large pieces like this leaves some little creases in there, which is why I try not to do it too much, but it'll be okay. All right, so again, I'm gonna offset this one as far as the placement. Another 45 degrees roughly, maybe 60, I don't know what you wanna call it. But we'll bring this down about an inch from the previous one. So that's gonna go right about there. So you can see how they kind of are staggered and kind of surrounding everything. And I'll throw a little bit of hot glue on here just to help me kind of keep this in place. Makes the wrapping a little bit easier. We'll pop that right about there. Hold that down, give that hot glue a second to take. Okay, there we go. And we can always kind of finesse this a little bit too after the fact. So go ahead and get some of your floral tape ready to go and start wrapping it right at the base of the leaf. And just twirl it around, overlapping the floral tape ever so slightly. Bring it down. There we go. Okay, so that is, there's the flower with the leaves. Beautiful. Okay, and then finally we have some longer leaves that are actually going to kind of stagger on top of each other. And I want to give these a little bit of a curl, so they're just kind of, well, one of them is going to be kind of standing up, maybe just a little curl at the top. So if you kind of eyeball it, you want this leaf to go up about 2.5 inches above where the flower is. So if I just measure that out, 1, 2, about 2.5, okay? So that's roughly where we want to anchor it. Okay, so that's probably gonna be the very bottom of where this little leaf is gonna go. So I will just kind of move this over slightly and just throw a little bit of hot glue right here at the very bottom. And I'll get that anchored in place like that. You want it to go, make sure you keep it nice and lined up with the stem. So it's going straight up. Okay, and then we can take our floral tape and, wow, I guess I'm getting strong or something. All that CrossFit. Okay, let's just start at the base, and we're gonna actually tape it up first. We're gonna work our way up a little bit and get some more of that stem up against the actual leaf. I'm not gonna go all the way up, just until it feels like it's got a good hold on it. About there. And then we'll bring it back down. Don't forget to stretch that out. Okay, just like that. And the last one here, all we're gonna do is take it and we're gonna make it droopy like that. And we're actually gonna glue that right to the back of the previous one. So let's just throw a little glue on there just to help it stay in place. And we literally want to line up the base of this stem with the base of the other stem, roughly. Doesn't have to be perfect. Right on the back of it. Okay, that's pretty good. Seems to be holding well. Let's get some floral tape out. Start wrapping it around the actual stem. I'm gonna work my way up from the bottom, up to about where I stopped on the previous little leaf, and then work my way back down. covering up any of the floral tape that might just be peeling away. And this time I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the stem. Okay, a little bit of a long stem, but that's okay. And there she is. Okay, beautiful little flower. And now it's just a matter of figuring out where to trim this to make it fit properly here. Obviously, you don't want to bring this down too much. You want to leave about this much. So what is that about? Oh yeah, maybe it's about an inch, I'd say. It's about an inch sticking out. Where is that? Yeah, right about there. Okay, so we know that we need to trim it right around here, I'd say. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so don't forget, as I mentioned, I will be adding just a little bit of braid around this top part, but I added some little filler in there so that I can literally just pop that in and it will pretty much stay in place. And there you have it. Beautiful flower and vase to complement our gorgeous and elegant teacup and our teapot. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please take a moment and visit us on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. While you're there, hit the little bell so that you get notifications anytime we release a new product, whether it be paid or free. And if you make this or anything from our bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the rest of our community. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can type in this little magical URL that you see here at the bottom of your screen. But anyway, what a great bundle. I had a blast assembling it. Everything went together perfectly, very enjoyable. I feel a lot better. So anyway, hope you had fun. Hope you had as much fun as I did. And as always, I look forward to crafting with you again. Hey, thanks for crafting along with me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out some of our other videos. And also, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to visit our site and check out our free SVG section where we have over 140 free SVG files complete with assembly videos. I look forward to crafting with you soon.